For we contend not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this present darkness, against the spiritual host of wickedness in the heavenly places. From the American Midwest comes This Present Darkness, where we explore the supernatural aspects of the paranormal from a Catholic perspective and expose the dark forces in our world and beyond, both seen and unseen. Now, here's your host, historian, paranormal investigator, author, and ghost lorist, Ursula Bielski.
Well, hello, my friends. It is so great to be here with you again. I'm so sorry I have not posted a video in a few weeks since we had Father Anthony on. As some of you know, I struggle with type 2 bipolar disorder, and the last 5 years with everything that's happened in my family and with my business and in the world, I've had a lot more frequent ups and downs. So I have periods where I'm very, very productive and organized and prolific in the work I do. And then there are other periods where it's just painful to do anything and I can't think straight. So I do apologize for that. I'm still kind of in that right now, but I wanted to do this video because I just feel like that it is so important. I had hoped to have a guest on with me that's more knowledgeable and an expert in this subject matter. But the two gentlemen that are those experts, I was not able to have either one of them on. Xavier Reyes Aral is one of them, and I have not been able to get in touch with him through his publisher. And the other one, Glenn Hudson, so sadly, his daughter passed away. So he was not able to come on. So please keep his family in your prayers. Thank you so much. But I do want to share with you this information and news about this subject because I feel it's so important and we don't have a lot of time. At least that's what everything points to. The subject is the subject of Garabandal, Spain, Our Lady of Garabandal, and the visitations of Our Lady and Saint Michael to some little girls in Spain in the early 1960s. These apparitions are very important to a lot of people, even though they are not approved apparitions in the Catholic Church. Now, as we've talked about before, for all of you who are not Catholic, people point to us and say like, oh, you believe in all these apparitions and stuff, and that, you should just believe in scripture. The Catholic Church has this rich body of information and experience and knowledge that contributes to our faith. And yes, scripture is the number one thing. But we also have what's called private revelation. And these are private revelations that people have had over the last 2 centuries, have apparitions, visitations with deceased saints, with angels, with the Blessed Virgin Mary, and even with our blessed Savior, Jesus Christ himself. And we have to take all of this, of course, with a grain of salt, and nobody is required to believe any of these apparitions. Now, some of these apparitions or private revelations are approved by the Catholic Church. And again, that doesn't mean that you have to believe in them and have devotions to these apparitions, but it means that it's allowed. So if you want to believe that the Blessed Mother visited the children at Fatima, Portugal, or Bernadette at Lourdes, or the children in Garabandal, Spain, that's okay. I'm sorry, Garabandal's not one of them. That's okay. And the church feels that it's beneficial for us to have a knowledge about and to be inspired by and to believe in the apparitions at these approved places like La Salette, Fatima, Lourdes, Akita in Japan, and others. Now, there are other apparitions that have been disproved by the church and unaccepted by the church. So we are not allowed to believe in those. One of the big ones that's a big controversial one is Medjugorje in Yugoslavia. So many millions of people have visited Medjugorje. Many people have been healed, converted. Many men have joined the priesthood and women have joined holy orders after visiting Medjugorje. On the other hand, there's a lot of controversy about it because the claimed apparitions have gone on for such a long time. A lot of the messages seem to be contrary to the theme and the vibe of the approved apparitions at places like Fatima, Lourdes, La Salette, etc. And the lifestyles of these seers or the visionaries seem to be kind of counter to what we would expect from the kind of lives that these seers would be living. For example, in a lot of the other approved apparitions, the seers went on to become nuns. The girls went on to become nuns, to live very impoverished lives, very holy lives. Seers at Medjugorje, a lot of them, there's a lot of wealth. They have big homes. I think one of the visionaries has a tennis court at the house. A lot of commercial industry has grown up around Medjugorje. There were some of the apparitions where there seemed to be demonic things involved. So it's very, very controversial. And we'll talk about Medjugorje in another episode. But today we're talking about Garabandal. Garabandal has not been approved by the church, but it's not condemned by the church either. So you are free to be inspired by the events at Garabandal, be interested in the events at Garabandal. And mainly, the main thing is we all never want to focus on the visionaries or the supernatural or paranormal aspect of the events. We always want to focus on the message. And the message of Garabandal is prayer, receiving the sacraments, especially the Holy Eucharist, and doing penance and making acts of reparation for the sins of the world. The message of Garabandal is the world has gotten itself in a very bad place with God. We need to make amends with God for others who are not doing that on a personal level. So we need to do penance. We need to suffer for the people who are not giving their lives to God. And in this way, hopefully we can avert a great punishment from coming upon the world. The Garabandal messages are not, and weren't in sort of prophecies that I'm going to talk to you about, are not really about the end times of that a lot of Revelation and the Christian church talks about. So this is not an eschatological body of information. It is rather about a physical temporal punishment that's going to come on mankind in the form of a chastisement. That's going to be a massive wake-up call. In fact, there's going to be 3 wake-up calls that were prophesied by the visionaries at Garabandal, the little girls, and I'm going to talk to you about those. So this is about 3 chances that we have, probably, very possibly, in the next coming year, to amend our lives, for humanity to make amends to God for everything that we have come to be. And if we don't, then comes the other stuff. So I want to tell you just a little bit about the background of this. Let me tell you first about my own personal experience with Garabandal. I really credit my continued faith, my Christian faith, and my continued faith to the Catholic Church, to Garabandal in a big way. And that really started with my aunt, Franny, my godmother. My mom's sister, Aunt Franny, was godmother to myself and a lot of my cousins also. And she was of such great faith. She went to 6:30 Mass every single morning with the bush on her head, sat in the same spot for her entire life. She married, she never had any children of her own. We were, all my cousins and my brother and I were like her children. She was just absolutely adored us. And she was really the matriarch of our family after my grandma died in around 1980. And Aunt Franny, like every time I saw her, she would give me like a whole bunch of like clippings that she'd clipped out of the newspaper, the parish bulletins, recipes that she'd written down and things like this, but everything that she gave me had some sort of a religious connotation. And Aunt Franny's house, like everything in Aunt Franny's house was Christian. The statues and icons and everything was a prayer book or a religious book of some kind. There was nothing to read in Aunt Franny's house except cookbooks. That was she was a great cook. There's nothing to read in our house but Christian stuff and cookbooks. And that's how I grew up. And my Aunt Franny, she had the only car in the family, and she had this big blue nice Mercedes that she bought with money that she made as a secretary. She bought it in the 1950s, and she would load all my cousins and my brother and I into the car, and she would take us on road trips all the time. Like we would go to parks and beaches, and we would go to all kinds of different towns in Wisconsin and Michigan. And there was one time we would sit like 3 deep and 5 across in the back seat, and we'd sit on the, the armrest in the front seat, sit on the lap of the person in the passenger seat. We counted 17 people in her car one time with all of us kids stuffed in there one summer day to go somewhere. And it was great. It was just a great time. But there was always that element of faithfulness. My Aunt Franny was so concerned about us all being faithful to God and Jesus and being faithful to the church and the Blessed Mother. And it was she who took me to a lot of the Rosary Club meetings when I was little. She always reminded me to say the Rosary, and to she had all these different devotions that she would do. And one of the things that we did, and it wasn't all my cousins, but it was myself and my brother and my mom, and one of their cousins, also my Aunt Ginny. We got in the car one day in the summertime, and we went up to a town called Necedah, Wisconsin. If you're Catholic, you maybe have heard of Necedah, because there were some apparitions reported of the Blessed Virgin Mary in the 60s and 70s, I think, to a woman named Mary Ann Van Hoof. And these apparitions have been condemned by the church. So either that was a fraud or it was something demonic that was going on. Those were condemned. But at that time, I think there still is a shrine up there in Necedah. And we had gone up there on a pilgrimage, just, our little family group, because there was going to be an appearance that weekend of a gentleman named Joey Lamangino. I'll put his picture up here. Joey became one of a number of people that learned about the Garabandal apparitions and became absolutely overcome with, passion about spreading the message of the Garabandal children. And he was blind. And one of the things about the Garabandal prophecies was that Joey would get his sight back on the day of one of the prophesied events, which I'll tell you about in just a few minutes. But we went to this appearance of Joey, and he gave a lecture. And I remember they showed this video of what happened at Garabandal, and they had up in big letters the messages that Our Lady had given. And I was so scared, because there's terrifying messages about these punishments that are going to come upon humankind if we do not change our ways. And that visit up there stuck with me throughout my whole life. And I have always followed the children of Garabandal as they grew up, got married, had their own families. And I always had in the back of my mind that these events are going to come someday. When are they going to come? And when things happen in the world, I always have that on the back burner, like what does this have to do with Garabandal and the messages and the prophecies of Garabandal? So let me tell you a little bit about Garabandal. So anyway, just to reiterate, I really credit Garabandal and my Aunt Franny, of course, with my continued faith in the Christian faith and in the Catholic Church. And that's why I feel like that's kind of what you would call the fruits of the apparitions. And I've seen that in a lot of other people who have really become more fervent about their Christian beliefs and their belief in the church because of the Garabandal apparitions. So those are good fruits of the apparition. That's what you want to see when you're trying to approve or condemn these apparitions? Are there good fruits in people's lives that are following the apparitions and living the message of the apparitions? So let's just talk a little bit about what happened at Garabandal. So the Garabandal apparitions are apparitions of St. Michael the Archangel and Blessed Virgin Mary that are claimed to have occurred from 1961 to 1965 to 4 young schoolgirls in the rural village of San Sebastián de Garabandal in Spain, northern Spain. The Virgin Mary in this series of apparitions claimed though the apparitions have won over many devotees all over the world, the bishops in the local area they've never found anything to be supernatural about what happened there. Okay. The events at Garabandal began on June 18th, 1961, when these 4 girls, they were 11 and 12 years old, were basically playing in the woods near their house, this little copse of trees. They were Mari Loli Mazon, Jacinta Gonzalez, Mari Cruz Gonzalez, and Maria Conchita Gonzalez. Despite the last names, none of them were related. They went home and told their parents that they had seen an angel. And the angel made another appearance on June 25th. The story just quickly spread throughout this little village, just had, a few dozen people in it at the time. And I think now it still only has like 300 people in it. So it was very, very small village in northern Spain. According to these little girls, the purpose of the visitations was to call for a conversion of heart. And they reported receiving 2 messages, one directly from the Blessed Virgin Mary and the other from the Virgin Mary by way of St. Michael the Archangel. The first message was revealed on October 18th, 1961, and it stated this. This is from the Blessed Mother. We must make many sacrifices, perform much penance, and visit the Blessed Sacrament, the Holy Eucharist, frequently. But first, we must lead good lives. If we do not, a chastisement will befall us. The cup is already filling up, and if we do not change, a very great chastisement will come upon us. The June 18th, 1965 apparition, this was toward the end, in which Conchita heard the second message, was televised live by Spanish television. Only Conchita Gonzalez, who is regarded as the primary seer, reported receiving this second message. And this is what the second message said. This is from the Blessed Mother. As my message of the 18th of October has not been complied with, and as it has not been made known to the world, I am telling you that this is the last one. Previously, the cup was filling. Now it is brimming over. Many cardinals, bishops, and priests are following the road to perdition, and with them, they are taking many more souls. Ever less importance is being given to the Holy Eucharist. We should turn the wrath of God away from us by our own efforts. If you ask his forgiveness with a sincere heart, he will pardon you. I, your mother, through the intercession of St. Michael the Archangel, wish to tell you that you should make amends. You are now being given the last warnings. I love you very much, and I do not want your condemnation. Ask sincerely, and we shall grant your plea. Reflect on the passion of Jesus. Now, the second message, as you can imagine, caused particular controversy because Conchita talked about the cardinals, bishops, and priests on the road to perdition. Today, of course, let's see, 65, almost 60 years later, oh, how many priests and bishops we have found to be on the road to perdition, not only with the sex scandal, but also with verified reports of satanic masses being celebrated by priests throughout the church in many different places, including claims that a satanic mass was even performed in the Vatican itself. And a satanic mass was performed by our former Cardinal Bernardine, late Cardinal Bernardine here in Chicago. This is a huge scandal. And this was connected to sex abuse of a young woman in the archdiocese that he was assigned to before he came to Chicago. So, I mean, it's terrible. So we know that this has been revealed to be true, what Conchita said about the many priests and bishops on the road to perdition. So what happened after this? Besides these two messages, the visionaries also forecast 3 events to come: a warning, a miracle, and a chastisement. The warning is described as a great illumination of conscience. This is going to be a moment where time stops and everyone on earth at the same time will be severely aware of the state of their soul before God. So they will be aware that God is real, that sin is real, and they will be aware of all of their sins, the gravity of all of their sins. Within a year, we don't know when the warning is going to take place, but within a year of the warning, there will be a great miracle. The miracle will leave a permanent sign in Garabandal, which will be able to be seen and photographed. 8 days before the miracle, Conchita Gonzalez, who is in her 70s now, is going to be able to announce the date and the time of the miracle. We know it's going to take place on a Thursday evening around 8 o'clock, Garabandal, Spain time. But she's going to announce this so that many people can come there, because if you are there and you're sick, you'll be cured. And many conversions will take place also. There were many paranormal events that happened during the Garabandal apparitions. And this is one of the things that has led a lot of people to feel that these are diabolical, because there seemed to be a lot more kind of paranormal sort of tricks and things that happened at Garabandal than in a lot of the other sets of apparitions. Things like at least one of the girls levitated about a foot off the ground during one of the ecstasies, during one of the apparitions. They were famous for, like, people would put all their holy objects like rosaries, or they would put wedding rings and personal belongings in a big pile. And the girls would hold up the objects to the Blessed Mother or to Saint Michael and ask them to have Jesus bless them. And they would then they would give the articles back to their rightful owner, having no idea who the owner was. There was just a big pile of stuff, but they would always give it back to the right person. They would go on these ecstatic walks around the village, which is a very rocky, hilly area. And they would walk backwards or even run backwards and forwards and up these hills, upstairs, backwards, downstairs, just with their eyes ecstatically to the sky, looking up at ostensibly the Blessed Virgin Mary before them. And a lot of people say, like, well, this seems a little strange, but aside from that, really the core of the message of Garabandal is very simple. It's completely in line with the teachings of the Catholic Church. It echoes the messages of La Salette and Fatima and Lourdes, very much approved, and Akita later, very approved apparitions in the church. And it's a very simple message, amend your hearts, do penance, and make reparation for all the sin in the world. And it's all about us basically getting more time here, and making ourselves right with God. There's nothing negative about this message, nothing suspicious about this message, nothing new agey about this message. Was what you see a lot of the times, like in Medjugorje. It's very specific, it's very simple. And one of the things we look for is that simplicity that lines up with the teachings of the church. Prayer, penance, amend your lives. That's the message of everything, right? And that's the message that we should be following. So there was one other event that took place that is considered a small miracle, kind of a big miracle, but it's considered a quote unquote small miracle that took place. And this was on July 19th in 1961. This was towards the beginnings of the apparitions. The girls said that they received, oftentimes during all the apparitions in those 4 years, the girls would often be seen going through the motions as if they were receiving Holy Communion. So they would have their hands folded in prayer, and they would put their tongue out to receive the Holy Eucharist, and then they would bless themselves. And when they were questioned about this by bystanders and their families and the local bishop and the local priest, they said that they were receiving Holy Communion from St. Michael. And there was this one evening, July 19th, 1961, where during one of these spiritual and sort of invisible communions, as Conchita had her tongue out to receive the Eucharist, a white communion host appeared on her tongue for just a few moments, and many dozens of people that were surrounding the girls, claimed to have seen it with their own eyes. And there was a photographer, amateur photographer there that was recording the apparition that night, who actually was able to record this. And you can, I'll put a shot on here of a still shot grab from that video. So why are we talking about Garabandal now? Well, as I mentioned, I had wanted to have one of the gentlemen I wanted to have on is a man named Glenn Hudson. And Glenn Hudson was one of a number of people who became very involved in the message of Garabandal, feeling a personal calling to spread the message of Garabandal. And you can, I'm going to link to his website on here. Like I said, his daughter just passed away. He could not be on with us, which I'm sorry about, but he also was recently on Taylor Marshall's show. If you follow Taylor Marshall, if you're Catholic, or if you don't, I'm going to put that link down because it's a great interview. Glenn Hudson became very good friends with Conchita Gonzalez, the primary seer in the Garabandal apparitions. As I mentioned, a couple of them, three of them moved to the United States. Everyone married, had children of their own. Conchita is now in her 70s, something else to keep in mind when you realize that she's going to be alive to announce the date of the miracle soon after the warning. So we're running out of time. And on that note, Gary Hudson said that during one of his interviews of Conchita, she told him that preceding this great warning, this great illumination of conscience that was coming, this is the first of the three events prophesied in the Garabandal by the seers in Garabandal, that the Pope would go to Moscow, and that this would be during a great synod in the church. Now, Conchita was 12 years old at the time, living in a rural village in Garabandal. She and the other girls didn't even know what a synod was. Lo and behold, this fall, we in the Catholic Church are coming out of a 2-year synod, the infamous now Synod on Synodality. This is a synod that was called by Pope Francis in the Vatican, and it's extremely controversial. It's caused great schism in the church among believers. Essentially, for the past 2 years, the church has been surveying not only Catholics, but non-Catholics about their opinions about the Catholic faith, the teachings of the Catholic Church, Catholic culture, Catholic moral values. And most experts believe that when the synod ends this fall, there are going to be sweeping changes made to the doctrine of the Catholic Church, and especially the moral doctrine of the Catholic Church. And it's going to completely rip the church apart. So the Pope announced recently that he plans to go to Moscow in September, and the synod is scheduled to end around the same time. So not only do we have this mysterious synod that Conchita prophesied back in the 1960s, but we also have the Pope going to Moscow for the first time. At the same time, the Synod is wrapping up. So many experts on Garabandal and also just experts in church prophecy sincerely and voraciously believe that we are entering into right now at the end of summer 2023, we are entering into that period of time that the Garabandal seers prophesied so many years ago now, 50 years ago now almost. It will all begin with the Pope going to Moscow. It will continue with the installation of the findings of the Great Synod and Synodality that is finishing up after 2 years. And Conchita also said that after the Pope returns to Rome, all kinds of hell is going to break loose all across Europe and probably, we think, the world as well. We know the war in Ukraine is raging with Russia. She said that wars are going to erupt all over Europe. And we believe they're going to spread to the rest of the world as well. And this is going to happen after the Pope returns to Rome after visiting Moscow this fall. After this is going to come the great warning, the illumination of conscience. The great miracle is supposed to happen. Some experts in Garabandal have looked at all the calendars and the clues, and they have deduced that the miracle is going to happen either in April or May. And there was also, Conchita also said it was going to be a feast day of a martyr to the Eucharist, one of the saints who was a martyr to the Eucharist. And so April of 2024 is what most of the experts in Garabandal have deduced is could very well be the date of the great miracle. And again, Conchita will announce the date of the miracle 8 days before, but before that, every one of us is going to go through the illumination of conscience, the warning. Conchita said many people will die of shock. Many people will die of shock when they realize, first of all, that God is real, that sin is real, and when they realize, of course, the gravity of their own sins and feel the weight of their own sins and feel how they have offended God. Get ready for this. We need to get ready for this. Don't be afraid. We want this to happen, but we need to pray. What did Our Lady of Garabandal say? She said, pray. Receive the sacraments. Become a Catholic, go to church, return to the church, come home today, call up your local church and say, I want to become Catholic. Next month, RCIA programs are beginning all over the world. So if you want to join the church, you can start the RCIA, the catechism classes next month in your local parish and become a full-blown Catholic at Easter time. So you'll be able to receive the sacraments then and everything else. But start now, call your local Catholic parish and tell them I want to become a Catholic. Okay, pray, do penance, receive the Eucharist. Go to confession first, receive the Eucharist frequently, at least once a week on Sunday, but more than that if you can. Pray the rosary, meditate. With the rosary, we meditate on the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. It is not a prayer of devotion, of adoration to the Blessed Mother. It is a prayer of reflection on the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Say the rosary at least once a day. Try to say the 5 decades every day. I'm going to put a link to the St. Joseph Rosary, which is all 5 decades. It takes about an hour and a half. Put it on while you're cooking, cleaning. You can say it throughout the day, but it will change your life. And it'll change a lot of lives. Do penance and make acts of reparation for everyone on earth. For those who don't believe in God, for those who don't believe in Christ, for those who are actively working against the teachings of Christ. There's a lot of those people today. Little acts of penance, taking a cold shower instead of a hot one, even for a few seconds. Ugh, brutal, I know. Giving up some snacks, giving up one meal a week, not eating meat on Friday, not eating meat on a couple days a week. Letting your partner pick the restaurant you're going out to tonight, even one that you don't like, making a meal for your husband or your wife that you don't particularly like, but they do. And then just eat it, suck it up. Little things. Don't turn on the air conditioner. If, as long as it doesn't hurt your health, or the heat, don't crank it up, put a sweater on. And prayer, just pray throughout the day. Pray throughout the day. Say the different chaplets, the Chaplet of Divine Mercy, the St. Michael Chaplet, the St. Therese Chaplet. Pray for the holy souls in purgatory. But pray for those alive on this earth that are we think, going to go through this great illumination of conscience. And I don't know how I'm going to fare, because we don't know if our confessed sins are going to be felt by us, or if it's just the ones we haven't confessed. I'm hoping it's the latter. I'm hoping it's the latter. But just steel yourself, put yourself in the presence of God's mercy, throw yourself at the foot of the cross and say, I'm sorry for everything, and I want to be prepared for this. And just pray and do penance. I'm going to put a whole bunch of links. I'm going to put a link to Glenn Hudson's website that has a lot of information about Garabandal, some books about Garabandal, some videos about Garabandal, and that interview with that Tiller Marshall did with Glenn Hudson recently. I'll put a link to that too. And if you guys have any questions about Garabandal, please put them in the comments. Or if you have opinions about Garabandal or any of these apparitions, I would love to talk more about this if you'd like to. And like I said, it has been really a crucial aspect of my faith, these Garabandal apparitions. And I hope maybe if you, this video and maybe some of this other content that I'm linking to will bring somebody else to a greater passion about their faith, or to enter even the Catholic Church by looking into the apparitions at Garabandal. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for your patience with me. I know we haven't had a lot of stuff going on this month, but I've got something great coming up this week. I'm having Gary Wayne on the show we're going to record the interview on the August 10th. So then the next week, I'm going to have a video up here of my interview with Gary Wayne, the author of the Genesis 6 Conspiracy. And I know you want to be here for that. So make sure that you like this, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to get notified when that event, that video goes live. And please share this. Please share this information. It's so important to share this information so we are all prepared if and when this all goes down. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much. And you just take care and have a really great weekend, and have a really wonderful August ahead. Thank you so very much for being here. And until the next time, remember to pray for ghosts. I'm Ursula Bielski.
Thanks for listening to This Present Darkness. The video version of this podcast is available on Ursula Bielski's World of the Supernatural YouTube channel. Be sure to become a subscriber by signing up with Buzzsprout today. And remember to sign up for the World of the Supernatural mailing list at worldofthesupernatural.com for our monthly newsletter and more. And don't forget to support the podcast through Patreon.